when the waters get muddy between like sexual energy and not sexual energy, it's all fucking sexual energy. It's all life force energy. And then you just like, either you can channel it.
Hi. How are you? Did you just burn your tongue?
Okay, I have...
Just jump right into it.
I fucking love you. Okay, I have this hilarious story. So yesterday, well, while we're recording this, yesterday was Mother's Day. Not that that has really any relevance, but
Happy Mother's Day, by the way. You're a wonderful mother.
Thank you. I was driving to my studio, and I bought this like mushroom coffee because because regular coffee just makes me feel like I'm having a panic attack. And I've been really enjoying it. And so I made this coffee, and it was like sitting in my little travel mug. And then I was almost all the way to my studio. So it was in my mug for like a while. Like, and I went to go just take like a normal person sip. I was sitting at a red light, and I went to go take a sip, and it was just like, it was so scalding hot. And I was burning my tongue, but it was like, have you ever done that where you took a too hot sip, but then you swallowed it?
Yes.
And then it like burns your esophagus. So I didn't want to do that. So I started just spitting it like into my cup, into my lap. But it was like painful. It was just like in pain, spitting out my precious fucking expensive mushroom coffee. I was like trying to get it back in the mug so I could drink it later, my backwash. And then I look up, and it fucking hurt. I look up, and the dude that's sitting next to me at the red light is laughing at me.
Thanks, bro.
He's laughing at me. And listen, I was having I think most days, or I'd like to think that most days I would be able to laugh at myself, but I was not. I was taking myself seriously that morning.
Yes.
And I was not prepared to laugh at myself. And I actually like had a little pity cry. I like sped away real quick, and I was like, I was like, the world is so cruel. I sped away with my burnt tongue. Oh, so that was my Mother's Day.
That is hilarious. Sorry to laugh at your pain. We're laughing now.
I know. I'm laughing now. I couldn't laugh with that guy. No.
That is pretty funny. Pretty good. I'm a big fan of that story.
I thought it was funny.
It is funny how like most of the time I can laugh at myself. Like Ben is so good at getting me to laugh at myself when I'm uncomfortable. But the times when you're not in a place to laugh at yourself, it just backfires. It's not fucking funny. Don't laugh at me.
Yeah, it makes it worse. Oh my God, it's so true.
Yeah.
Now, okay, Lila, my 8-year-old is, and I think this is a Cancer trait, but she takes herself very seriously, and she does not like being teased or made fun of or picked on, even if it's in like a really sweet, like loving way. It backfires like 100% of the time. And it's tricky because she'll dish some shit out.
Yeah.
Like she'll like dish out some sass or whatever. And then we're giving it right back. And she's like getting all butthurt about it. And I've had to talk to her about like, you can't dish it out if you can't take it, man. Like, but she is so funny. And then Evie, like, I think part of her love language is like roasting, like a well-placed burn.
Yeah.
She just
that's one of mine for sure. Oh my God. Nothing makes me feel more seen than a well-placed burn. I'm like,
See, and I feel that way. I definitely feel that way. But you can imagine Evie and Lila being sisters together.
Yeah.
95% of their arguments are
this.
Evie like roasted Lila. Lila was not having it. And then Lila goes like crazy, like ninja on her, and will like just be like a Tasmanian devil and like attack Evie. And Evie's coming at me like, what did I do? And I'm like, Evie, like, you gotta stop instigating them.
She doesn't like burns.
Mania.
Like we do.
I was like, burn me. I was like, come dish it out to me, kid. Like, I'll laugh. It's hilarious though. But it's so true. Like, and I like what you said about when like a well-placed roast or burn to me feels very similarly like somebody knows me well enough to like be able to be like clever, and their mind works in a way that's witty and clever, and there's like so many layers of appreciation that I have, and I think that's actually like pretty important, like to at least have a little bit of that in friendships, you know. I know like you and I are so funny that way, because we'll get into moods, I think, where we'll be like roasting each other more. Like primarily our relationship is like really sweet and loving and fun, and then we'll get in these little windows where
well, I love when
we'll
you get into it, because I feel like it's more not that like I don't know, it's more like how I engage, and I feel like with you I am like sweeter almost than some of my other relationships. Actually, you've like taught me to be more tender, I think. And yeah, so when you get all sassy and roasty, it's like I love it. I'm like, yes, please, more.
Yeah,
and it also depends on the intention, because sometimes I don't know, there are people in my life who do digs, but they don't feel like they're coming from a place of like their own insecurities, or as a way, like you can tell the difference between, or at least I can actually, maybe this is like part of why some people don't like it, is I can tell the difference between like a well-intentioned one, or one that comes from like a place of love, and then one that's like a dig that's actually meant to like try and knock you down a peg. And that's the difference, right? Like those don't feel good. Those never feel good. And I don't know, I've really come to believe that the ones that are digs to try and knock you down a peg, that's just come from people's own insecurities, like
from insecurity. And it is it's really distinct though, like feeling it that way, like or like another version that I've experienced is I feel like I've definitely experienced being like roasted or teased for entertainment. Like it was at my expense for entertainment
that's
of
just
like
mean.
other people.
That's like
and
flat
that
out
doesn't feel
mean
great.
and bullying, and that feels shitty. No, for sure.
Yeah, that doesn't. Oh, you go. Feel fun. I definitely.
It's actually
experienced that. You know what's funny?
No, you go.
No, you do it.
No, you go.
No, I feel like I was deviating.
Oh, it's okay. Deviate away.
How dare you? Okay. I was going to say, I think like looking at my life and how I behave, I think that like teasy, roasty part of me comes out the most when I kind of have like a crush on somebody. Like I'm like actually like a 12-year-old boy. Yeah. And I'm just like, I have a crush on this person, but all I'm doing is roasting them and making fun of them. And what is wrong with me?
What is that? It is a thing where you're like have a crush, and so you just like kind of pick on someone because you're like,
you just pick on them and make fun of them and like are sarcastic. What is that?
I don't know, but it's definitely like there's like a pull there where like when you feel that crush, because that's the thing where like, you know, girls are often told when boys are picking on them that they actually like them.
Right.
Which like isn't always true, right? But it's like a thing that girls are told when boys are like mean. It's like they like you. And I don't understand.
Yeah.
It is definitely a thing. And we all know that feeling.
It's a thing. Listen,
where you're like,
my girls came home the other day from school and Lila was like, so-and-so in her class just keeps throwing rocks at a girl in her class. Like there's a boy in her class that apparently has a crush on this girl, and how he's expressing it is he throws rocks at her. And Lila was like, why are boys like this? I don't know. If you figure it out, let me know. I was literally just having this conversation with Lila.
My little sister, she's like, I do not experience this. Like roasts do not feel good. They never feel good. I'm always like, and I just am like, oh man, it is a thing, and it's a delicate balance. It takes, I think, a level of awareness to be able to like to do a kind roast, and also probably a level of confidence to be able to receive it.
That might be what it is,
You know?
actually. I think maybe it's some level of like, I'm dishing something out that I think is like witty and clever.
Mm-hmm.
And is it going to land? Is this person going to get how witty and clever I am?
Yeah.
And are they confident enough to receive it and witty and clever enough to have like some sort of comeback or be able to like get back at me?
Dude,
so it is like
my
maybe
favorite.
Yes.
I love this. Like when Ben
maybe it is like
me,
kind of a
fuck, Ben's so good at roasting me too. God, I wish I could
he's
come up with an
brilliant
because he'll do it like full circle, right? Where like it's actually funny.
Like
Ben's humor is really distinct and not something I've come across in a lot of people because Ben's humor requires history. Because he likes
it's a narrative.
He likes to do like callbacks in like a really clever way. And so the longer you know him, the better it gets, right? Because it's like it requires
you have this like archive.
It requires an archive. Ben's humor requires an archive. It's so true. Mm-hmm. And when I first met him and we didn't have that, I was like, your humor is so weird. Because it just because I wasn't in momentum. On it, and so much of it was like callbacks to things, so I felt left out. You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't feel a part of because his humor required history, and we had no history. So this is like early on, and so I was just like, your jokes are all like old things. But now that I'm like, now that I'm in on it, and it's like a well-placed roast from like a particular time, like. It's smart.
Almost like that's a whole other level of cleverness because it's like this full long it's like long form.
It's long like form
narrative comedy. Yes. I love it. And like and it's just enough because I've seen him do it to you. I've been in the thing where you're about to go down like fucking Snarky Avenue and he like roasts you and then it just gets you to come back into like the moment with like this humor. Yeah.
Like he literally will stop me in my tracks from going down like an entire like thought process with just like a well-placed roast. And I'm just like, God damn it. I can't go that. I can't go down that path anymore.
I've seen him at work.
Because I will fulfill the prophecy. It's almost like I'm like too stubborn. Yeah,
it's an ego thing. You cannot.
To want to like go down that path. And so I'm just like,
but like
checkmate,
it's
my
like
friend. It's good. It's
good. Checkmate, bitch. I love that. Yeah. Like flirting in general. I know this isn't what we were like planning on talking about.
Let's talk about flirting.
Let's talk about flirting. Like I think it's like a really important and kind of big part of communication.
It's so fun.
That I don't know if like you ever really like explicitly talk about it. It's very intuitive. It's a very intuitive process, you know, to flirt with somebody.
And it's funny because for me, flirting and banter, like I think some people can conjure that up almost no matter who they're with. And I'm not one of those people actually. It's brought out in me by others. And it's something that it's actually, this is so interesting because I've never like said this out loud before or like thought about it this explicitly, but it is something I've noticed because I've been, I don't know if like disappointed is the right word. That feels too aggressive, but I've been kind of like bummed that I can't just like conjure this part of me up regardless of who's around and that it has to be like brought out in me because I do see it as a quality that some people just have and can like switch on. And they're like super charismatic people, right?
Yeah.
Just like, but I can keep pace with someone like that, but it has to be brought out in me. And it's something that I've been like, man, I wish I could just be like witty and have the banter like on demand, but I don't. Like somebody else has to bring it out in me.
I mean, anyway. I feel like I resonate with that to a certain extent because like I feel like I have a pretty like it's a pretty big part of me that I'm actually kind of just like getting in touch with again. Like I feel like I'm like getting in touch with this part of me, this like charismatic, flirtatious, bantering, roasty part of me. but it has to have like an outlet. Like it has to roasty. How to be roasty. Is that the name of this episode?
Yes.
It has to have like a landing point. Like if I don't have a person that it's like going to land on and they're going to throw it back to me, I'm probably not going to engage like that. But like if I have somebody that's like giving me that good feedback, then I'll show up. The funniest thing is at your wedding, this makes me laugh so hard. At your fucking wedding, Ben's dad was like,
you guys just like had an entire relationship with the core foundation of roasting.
Just like absurd remarks back and forth. And it was so funny. It was more just like absurdity that we were talking about and super sarcastic and it was so great. And I had such a great time. And that's just like what we did. And it was surprising to me because I was like, but it was so nice to have that kind of little
like a shtick
bubble. We had a whole shtick.
Well, tell one of the stories about you being a rabbi.
So, one of them...
That's the one that stands out to me.
That's my favorite. One of them, I'm sitting there. This is before your like rehearsal dinner or whatever, the night before. And I had these big, ridiculous like stilettos. And they weren't on my feet. They were just sitting on the ground because I was waiting until the last fucking second to put those things on my feet. And I'm sitting in like the main area where everyone was around. And and then Ben's dad, he comes up and he goes, "Oh, are those shoes? Did you bring those shoes for me?" Or no, that's not what he said. He's like, "Are those your shoes?" And I said, "No, they're your shoes. You asked me to bring them for you, remember?" And he was like, "Oh yeah." And he was like, and then he goes into, I brought you the rabbi hat.
The rabbi hat.
Jokes about like me being the officiant. And I'm like, and I was like, "Oh, thank you." I was really hoping you would remember that. That's really important to me that I get to wear that tomorrow. And we just like kept going back and forth. And now we kind of like have a little bit of an archive that even when we were hanging out and having lunch, it was just so fun. I just love that
about joking that you're a rabbi and things like that. And he still jokes about you're a rabbi, like you're a rabbi forever in his eyes.
And I love it. It's just so fun, but it is like such good energy to be in. It feels so good.
I think because it's playful. It's playful, and when there's like a layer of safety where you feel like this person doesn't mean you harm. Because that's when it's coming from a good place, right? It's fun, I think, because it's playful. Because you're pretending and you're sarcastic, and then you have to pick up that the other person's like not being serious, and so then you have to like dish it back out. And it's just so fun, and it feels really good to like be playful with someone. And
maybe it is, and it is very like imaginative, especially when you're being like sarcastic and you're making shit up. I wonder if it's just an evolution of, because there's like developmentally children go through this like magical thinking phase, which is like pretend play, right? Everything is magical. They actually have no distinction in their brain between reality and dream life and what's happening on TV. It's all real for them. It's all one thing. And like that's a fun phase because then you have to actually try to sort through what's real and what happened and what didn't happen. But I wonder if it's almost just some sort of like grown-up version of magical thinking where you're playing pretend with people and you're just wanting to play and laugh and have fun.
Yes.
You know?
I think this is actually like a big shift that's happening as people are like craving play as adults more and more. I think that's like what ecstatic dance is. That's why I love acro, Down by the Green. And I don't know. And I think that's why everybody loved the scavenger hunt we just did. Where it was like, have we talked about the scavenger hunt on this? I can't remember.
We did on some episode. Okay. I can't remember if it might have, I don't know.
But I think that's like what people liked about it. Because it's like, when do you get together with your friends and like play and play just hard?
Play.
Yeah. Totally.
I feel like we've talked about, because I know that there are like actual like adult summer camps that are set up like fucking summer camps.
There's one I'm going to. It's called Buccaneer Days. Yeah, it's like a pirate adult summer camp. Yeah, there's like a bunch of them here, like summer camps.
I know.
Where it's like a long weekend and you just like play.
I feel like that is so needed.
I think that events
is this
are
your
in
calling?
my future. Yeah, events are in my future in
play
some
events.
capacity. Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to do many more
Because there's
events in person with
so
connection and
much.
play.
Yes, and you're so good at it. It's like you are gifted at it. And there's so much seriousness and heaviness just like by default being an adult in this world. And I think play has to be like intentional. Like you have to be intentional about cultivating that in your life. That's been like a big thing over the course of this last year as I've been like thinking about where I want to go with my life, what I want to do. Like that has been at the core of it. Like I want playfulness. I want to
Yes.
cultivate playfulness in my friendships, my relationships with my girls, where I go. Like, because I feel like I know I've experienced this as a mother, like being so tired, like being so fucking tired that I cannot even play with my kid. Like
Yeah,
just being so exhausted.
I can't imagine.
And that yeah, and I think it's like unavoidable to a certain extent, but I remember feeling like, man, I want to get back to a place where I can show up and be really playful. And I feel like me and my girls have been so playful lately. And just like having
Yeah,
so much fun with each other, which
I
feels
feel like I
so
can
good.
feel that. I can like
Yeah.
feel that energy from you when I talk to you, when I see like the pictures and videos you've sent me, like with Lila, like doing the breakdancing move on the floor. That was
Oh my
so
God. I
funny.
was crying. They were
It
just
was
like
so
doing it.
funny. They were just
I,
being like little breakdancing babies. It was so
and like
funny.
posing and like
At the end,
smirking. Oh
yeah.
my God. I know.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And I think actually kind of circling back to like flirting, because I think flirting always like has the connotation that it's I don't know, maybe sexual or like that you
Sexual.
want
Yeah.
something sexual with it. But I
Yeah.
actually feel like I flirt with people all the time. Not and it's like not
Totally.
sexual. You know what I mean? It's that like
Yeah.
that brief encounter with someone, and it doesn't matter like their gender or anything, right?
Right.
Where
Right.
you just like have a quick little like banter or connection, and it like can happen with somebody like checking you out at the grocery store, where you
Totally.
like got that
Yes.
flirty
Yes.
energy, and it feels
Yeah.
so good because it's like a quick
Mm.
you're quickly connecting on like a playful, I feel like it's because it's like a childlike energy almost,
Mm.
but we've like,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean it doesn't have to
We've
be
like
like,
sexualized it, I think, in a
yeah,
big
because
way. Yeah.
it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
it really is like all because it's like based in play, actually, I think. And
Yeah. I think
that
it's, you know, what's,
flirty energy feels so
yeah.
good.
It feels so good. And it's real sparkly. I feel like it's also really magnetic. Like anytime
Uh-huh.
been in that flirty energy, people kind of like it's magnetic. Like people are like
Yeah.
drawn to you because you're
Mm-hmm.
having a good time. I do think that it can't I think like most connection has like a sensual core of like what I mean, like sensual, sexual in that, like, how do I explain this?
It's
Um,
Eros. It's like what Esther
yes,
Perel is always talking about, where she
that's
talks
it.
about like life force, vitality, energy,
Yes.
Eros. And she's like, and we are too quick to think that that is like, we over sexualize it. That's what she's like hearing
And
her
we
talk
put it in
about
this
that.
very narrow
Yes.
space of like, you just want to fuck this person
Right.
when that like Eros energy is like, it's not about that at
It's
all.
not
It's
about
about this
fucking.
moment. It's about
It's
this sparkly moment we're in, you know?
it's like a passion and a vitality, I feel like is like a,
Vitality is a great
it's like
word.
vitality is the energy that's there. And how, because she talks about it, I've heard her talk about it a lot with like new moms and stuff, how they're like their Eros is really engaged with their children, and how when she has
Right.
conversations with couples about this, she's like, it's not sexual, guys. Like it's like it can be like separate, you know what I mean? But it's still
Right.
that same
Mm-hmm.
energy. And when that's being like
Right.
fulfilled by play with your children, you're not like as looking as much for like, maybe connecting sexually with your partner, because it's
Right.
like the
Because that
same
energy is being
vital life
channeled. Yeah.
force. And I think we have a hard time like connecting with it, because we're like all weird in purity culture and think that I don't know. We have
Paranoid
a,
culture.
yeah, we have
Yeah.
like such a hard time, like
Right.
I think having this conversation even like to begin with, because it feels weird to like acknowledge that that comes from a same part of ourselves, right? The same part of
Yes.
ourselves that like does want to experience sexual connection.
This is such an interesting
and that's why like
thought.
flirting feels scary when you see your partner like flirting maybe with the person at the checkout, right? And then you see that they have this like real intense playful, erotic, you know, again in the sense of Eros, not in the sense that you actually want to like bang that person.
Right.
And you see that and people can get like jealous because you're like, well, that was real sparkly and warm and vibrant, and I want to have that with my partner. And it can be something that's harder to cultivate as you like, you know, there's familiarity and there's safety and there's
enmeshment.
Yes, because it kind of does take away from that. It doesn't always inherently take away from it, but like when there's stability, safety, and security and predictability, because I think that's the other thing actually that's so fun about it, is that it's not predictable.
Yeah.
It feels like you're really because
it's exciting,
you're really like present
shocking,
and engaged. And you have to be, because you kind of don't know what's coming. Because it's like you're both trying to keep each other on your toes with this like playful, like imaginative, sarcastic sometimes like energy. Yeah. Oh,
that's so good.
I like.
So I'm having this like thought about, because we talk so much about ourselves in parts. Like part of me is experiencing this, part of me is experiencing this, and that's so good. But I wonder if thinking about this like life force energy and separating it into parts is unhelpful. And I'm going to try to talk this out. So, because we do say like, this is sexual energy and it stays here. This is creative energy and it stays there. This is like get shit done boss energy and it stays over here. When I think the truth is it's all life force energy. Like it is all coming from the same channel. It's all that vitality, and it just branches, or you can direct it into different energy. So that's why like when the waters get muddy between like sexual energy and not sexual energy, that's what I was referring to. It's all fucking sexual energy. It's all life force energy. It is all coming from that like place in you. And then you just like, either you can channel it into fucking somebody, you can channel it into making a painting or like starting a business. And I remember I actually like, I uncovered that in therapy years and years ago, because I was experiencing like a real low libido, and I was like sad about that because like it was uncharacteristic. And I remember being like really bummed, and my therapist was explaining to me, she was like, your life force energy is just being channeled elsewhere. This because I was like processing my mom's death. She was like, your life force energy is really being channeled into like nurturing and caring for you as you're grieving. And so it makes a lot of sense that you don't have a ton that's flowing over into a sexual expression right now. And it made me so relieved to not feel like something died. Like, oh my God, my like libido died and I'm just like dead from the waist down now.
Listen,
like, it was just
that happens to me when I'm getting super into work. And it's weird because it's actually funny, because I was having this conversation not that long ago with a group of people, or a few people, who don't really like their jobs.
Sure.
And they were just kind of like, wow, that's like really hard to imagine. Because I was explaining, I was like, quite honestly, like my work brings me so much like fulfillment that sometimes when I'm like real on fire with like what I'm creating in like the workspace of my life, my libido is like not a top, like sex is just like not a top priority. And I have a pretty high libido. I don't even know why, like compared to what, but I don't know. That's what I've been told. And so it's like
the feedback I've gotten.
That's the feedback I've gotten. I'm like, compared to what? Anyway. So anyway, so I can get like real passionate and like lit up and on fire about like things that I'm working on and creating work-wise. And then it feels like a libido drop for my partner, because it's just like not
it's
as
being
like
channeled elsewhere.
It's being channeled into like what I'm doing like work-wise, and I'm so fulfilled and on fire. And it's just so funny because I don't know, I've like I said, I was having that conversation with two people who like don't really love their job, and they were just like, what does that feel like?
Totally.
Like, and it made me really grateful, you know? Sometimes it's like I beat myself up because I'm like, ugh, I don't know, I'm just like not as interested in sex right now. But then I have to remind myself that it's not like gone. I'm so grateful actually for the seasons of the low libido because I've also experienced that with like sadness and things like that. And it can be kind of freaky where you're just like, oh no.
Yeah. Is this
Am
who
I
I
just
am
like,
now?
is this over? Am I never
Yeah.
gonna like want to have sex ever again?
Yeah, it's
Like,
real wild. Like the first time that happened to me was right after my mom died. But it was like, even though I'm like in my brain, I'm like, this makes sense. I'm grieving.
right.
It was It made me nervous. Like
I
I
know, I
didn't like
remember
it.
it. I was like,
Yeah.
it will come back. I promise. We had
I'm
like
like, are
actual
you sure?
conversations. I was
Yeah.
like, yes. And it does help, I think, to go through those seasons of life, right? Where you're like, okay, this
Yeah.
goes away and then it comes back so that you can remember and it can be okay.
Yeah,
Because
and not
I've
like
also
freak out.
experienced that where you're like, wow, that used to be such a fun part of my life. And now I'm never going to have sex again. I guess
I
that's
know.
it.
This is
I'm
it. I
done.
guess I'll just
It
get
was a
some
good
cats
run,
and
guys.
live with yeah.
Yeah, we had a good run.
Seriously. Oh my gosh.
I'll never know what it feels like to enjoy sex ever again.
Honestly, like I think normalizing like ups and downs in your like libido and sexual expression is really important. And it like has I think a lot of times, most of the time, nothing to do with like the other person. And like, obviously, if there's issues, that's a whole other conversation. But like
Yes,
normalizing, normalizing like I'm just like not there now. And how else can you like experience connection with your partner then?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, how else
Mm-hmm.
can you have like a sensual connection that maybe isn't just like banging them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is like, all the separation that we do, like I love the idea of like, let's like blur all those lines a little bit more and like let that energy like flow where it wants to go. I actually like I have like practiced this physically. I'm interested to see if you've ever done this, because I'm like a oh my god.
What is
Okay, here we go.
happening? I'm so
like
excited for whatever is about
already
to come out of your mouth. I'm like, what is happening over there?
So sometimes I've practiced this, like I'm a fucking like sex energy,
yeah,
airbender, firebender.
yes.
So I have like for me, and for most people, like you experience your sexual energy in like your sacral, right there, like in your fucking ovaries or in your pelvis, right? And I can feel it, like that energy building, like getting all fucking charged up like a fireball. Yes. And usually what you want to do is like fucking go jump somebody's bones or masturbate or do something, because like that pressure is building and you want like some sort of release. So I have experimented feeling that pressure building, and like the visualization that I do is I take it and I like
oh my god, I'm so excited.
I take it and I like push that like sexual energy up my spine and like into like through the top of my head. Like that's the visualization. And what I've experimented doing that with, for me, has been creative projects. Is I'll like feel this like sexual energy, and then that is like the visualization is just me helping me channel it out of my like sacral area into like other spaces in my body, and then channel it towards creative projects. And it's been like, it can be really fucking powerful, like to be that intentional about my energy, because I think a lot of times we're very primal with our sexual energy. We just want release. And I know there are people out there that practice like kind of moving like ding it and moving it elsewhere. Yeah. Which is like, I'm sure there's like terms for this, but
no, I love that. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's actually funny that you say this, because what was I watching? There's like, I was in two different scenarios in like the last month. I was watching something, maybe it was on TV, or maybe it was like, I don't know, on Instagram. I actually want to say that I think one of them was like Cardi B or something, which I have no idea why I would be watching Cardi B, but I'm trying to like, like a reel or something.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember it, but it was like two different occasions where somebody, like the character or whatever, the whatever I was watching said something about like energy like shooting through their yoni. They're like, ooh,
Oh, okay.
like, yeah, like I just felt my like yoni get like nice and warm and about being excited. And they weren't it wasn't sexual.
Right.
That was the thing that was like blew my mind. As I was like, oh my gosh, I love that they're saying this because it is a sensation, like kind of what you experienced. And I've experienced it too, where it's like down here, it's like excitement.
Yeah.
But it's like not always sexual.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it is, and sometimes you like want to get that
and
release.
It can translate.
God, I wish
really
I could
easy.
remember because what I took away from seeing those, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. There's like a new conversation happening about the different energies that we experience, like shift through our body.
Yes.
And how there's more nuance to this conversation.
Yes.
That was like what I like loved about it. I was like, oh my gosh. And also it was like so relatable because it's like, yeah, I've experienced that too. Have I ever said this out loud before? No.
Right.
And so I just like, I don't know. I kind of like love this conversation because I think it's something that people can relate to. But also I don't think it's something you put your attention on as much. Like intentionally to try and like understand it and bring self-awareness to it. It's kind of like something that's just like always existed.
Right. It's real, just primal.
Yeah, because it can just be like
instinctual.
it could be like for me, it can feel like an energetic wave that lasts less than a second, right? Like as a sensation in my body. And so it's so easy to not like think on that too much,
like
or to just
tuned
be like
into it.
I'm horny. Yeah. When really it's like it's not even like I said, it's not always like sexual, but it's something that we've associated.
We've just defined it that way. Yeah.
Sex.
Yeah.
It's the same concept as when I stopped calling how I jump out of bed in the morning anxiety.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Where it's like I feel this surge of energy when I wake up, where I like literally am it's like somebody took like a defibrillator to my chest when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
And I used to think it was like I used to be like I'm an anxious person,
right?
And that is anxiety and like dread for the day. And now I've just like relabeled it. And it's like changed my life. Yeah. And I just think that this is more of that, right? It's trying to put words to this energy that feels a little erotic, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like sexual. And you can probably channel it into so many different things.
Which I think
is exciting.
Is exciting. And it can be really empowering to be like, I'm having this energy and I actually don't really need somebody else to like satisfy this almost like craving or this like desire that's building, and I can move it and use it and experience it in other ways, which is really, it's like a superpower. It's kind of like this. Yeah. It's kind of like a superpower, I think.
It's a life, because it is life force. It's Eros, it's life force, it's vitality. And it feels really good when you can like channel it into something that you want to channel it into,
right?
Rather than it kind of one, I think for a long time I used to like probably have like shame around that energy. Not I think I did, I definitely did. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like it's, if you associate it always with sex and you were raised in a like sex shaming culture, which I was and you were, it could be easy to like shame or stifle
and to try to
or think there's something wrong with
shut
it.
That down. Yes.
Totally. When really it's the thing that makes you want to go on adventures and connect with random people and be like, you're fucking awesome, and banter and create art and it's so juicy.
Love this. And we like pretty much across the board, at least for our like culture here in the US and this like puritanical post-puritanical thing we're all dealing with, there's a level, regardless of how you were raised, there's kind of just even in like the media, there's like a level of shame around, definitely when we were kids and teenagers, that just like we all have to grapple with. And it very much was like, that's for the bedroom. Shut that down. You know what I mean? Keep that private. We don't talk about it. And that's for the bedroom in your marriage. You know what I mean? And like shifting the whole conversation over to this, life force energy that is like welcomed. You can welcome it, because I do think that maybe for me and other people, a side effect of the trying to shut that down is it almost like being like a bad, it can feel like a bad sensation. Like, oh, that's bad. Like I'm turned on and I shouldn't be. And shame.
Right. Well, I think
repression.
like again, it's like even if we took turned on and made it not sexual, because it's not always
but that's
sexual.
why I like
it's like
turned
when you
on.
Yeah.
For
it's
me,
like lit
is
up.
such a good term. Yes, it is
Yes.
a good term. We use it
Yes.
exclusively sexually, but for me, I can get like, that's why I love, like, I feel like I've been around people and they've like, somebody brought a delicious meal to them at a restaurant and this chick was like, oh my God, my pussy's wet. Like seeing this meal. And I fucking love that. Like it's this idea of like being inspired, being turned on, being activated, charged up, excited, you know, and making that be just like there in the world.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be sexual, you know?
Yes. I think it's so important. All of this stuff was the first time I heard it was with Esther Perel, and it made so much sense to me. I was like, oh yeah, we've put so much like shame and control around this particular like area. Honestly, in part probably because it's really powerful and it feels scary to other people. And so obviously when things are scary, we try to control it. And so it like makes total sense. It's like on brand for the world we live in.
Totally.
To see that energy, be scared of it, think that there's something inherently wrong with it, and then try to repress and control it. When it's like, I don't know, just so unfortunate because it's
I know.
the best.
And then feminism is born. Yeah, no, seriously, like that it's so true. And I feel like we like I feel like most people can identify with the feeling of like being turned on in your brain, right? Like you are in a conversation, you are learning
so present.
Something. And you are just, you feel like you're sparkling. Your brain is moving a million miles an hour and you're just like fucking turned on in your brain. And also like, I feel like I've experienced being like really heart-centric turned on, like feeling a ton of love and gratitude. And you can almost feel that like pulsing in your chest. It's like a very visceral experience for me. And like, and I think like, like being more attuned or intentional about like where you're feeling that energy or what's happening, I think is like a pathway to like a whole like, you know, realm of intelligence and understanding about yourself and like how you respond to the world and how you want to show up in the world. And it, but it isn't anything I was ever taught or talked to about.
I don't think there was an awareness of it. It was other than that, it was dangerous and scary and because it's powerful, I think. No, I love where this went. I love the idea of this. I love the idea of like flirting and Eros and erotic energy and vitality and all of that, and thinking about all of that, not in the context of sex. Because I think it is very much alive and well, but it's not something that we often look at. And I think that when you take the time to become aware or more aware of like the sensations in your body and like what they're telling you and working with them and not being so quick to identify or label them, but like being more curious and trying to like feel like, oh, like that's when you realize that like excitement and fear actually can sometimes feel very similar. And it's just, I think it brings, well, for me, it brings a level of acceptance of myself that I don't think I had before that, where it was again all just scary and and something to be like controlled. Especially because like when you're a kid and you're being told to like sit still for like hours and hours and hours, like you're basically being told that this is like too much and problematic and you're not going to be successful until you learn to control it. And then I think that's probably like where unhealthy behaviors come from, because that's where people like overeat or get addicted to sex or like gambling. It's I mean this is not like that simple, but I think it probably plays a role
The
because it's not
repressive
something
and
that
like the scarcity you feel there. Yeah.
it's like all that repression, it just like rears its ugly head when you repress things in a huge way and comes back in a version that is harmful. Whereas if
Like an
you are like
extreme
expressive,
Yeah.
and you're like learning to integrate it and understand it and see it and feel it and learning how to work with it and not just like put a hammer down on it. I just think that that's like so important to feeling good in your body. Anyway, little tear there.
Yes. No, I fucking love it. It is really, this is like such an interesting thought though, that repression can create obsession later on in life for sure.
Totally.
And because there's this pendulation effect, and that's been something I have thought a lot on as I've parented my girls, is like, how do I create, you know, safety and good decision making and all the things without repressing. And because I don't want to create some sort of like fixation in them in the future. Like, I actually think about, I had a friend growing up and we were like preteens together or whatever, and I remember my mom always let me and my sisters wear makeup if we wanted to wear makeup. And I'm talking what is this? This is like early 2000s, this is like late 90s. So I'm talking white fucking eyeliner, people.
Oh yeah, Wet and Wild.
You know what I'm talking.
Wet and wild,
white fucking eyeliner. So, and I remember this friend, she was so jealous. She's like, "Oh, your parents let you wear makeup? I'm not allowed to wear makeup until I'm 16." And I remember this was like a topic of conversation. And then when she turned 16, I never again saw her without a full face of makeup. It was like the full shebang. And I remember feeling like, oh wow, that created like a thing that she really,
it happens
really wanted
to people
and
with
couldn't
food.
have. Yeah.
I have people in my life where same thing with food, like, you know, being told certain foods are bad and how it made them just like want it, like sugar especially. Yeah, I think that there's a real thing there. And I think that the more we can, because the thing is that one is like denial and the other is like respect and personal responsibility. It's like those are the two.
And that's what you
one
want
is like
to
complete
teach.
denial of this thing. If we just deny that this is here, if we just deny its existence, maybe it will just go away. And then always what ends up happening is it comes back like in full force, because we know that stuffing things and ignoring them doesn't work. And then the other side of that is like, how can we cultivate like personal responsibility, awareness, acknowledgement of this thing, and then like working with it so it doesn't like consume you.
Yes.
I don't know.
I mean, this is the conversation about like the lack of like proper sex education in our in our school systems. Like, this is it, because it's like it's there, it's happening, right? Like, so let's teach intelligence around the thing that is going to happen regardless, you know?
Seriously.
It's so true. Yeah, personal responsibility. Yeah.
Personal responsibility, man. I think there needs to be a lot more of that, which involves trusting others to make good decisions for themselves, which was ultimately going to be the topic of conversation for this podcast, but we went a completely different direction.
We like talking about flirting.
Flirting, Eros. I love it. I really do. And I even feel like now, I feel like we're going to revisit this conversation in like 5 years on this podcast, because we're not going anywhere. And we're going to have new vocabulary. Yeah. And we're going to have new vocabulary, because I feel like even in the conversation we had today, it was a little abstract.
We kept bumping up against concepts
like limitations
that I don't have words for.
Yes, 100%. I felt it in this conversation. And I think that, I don't know, I just think that it's one of the things I love about being alive right now, is seeing everybody kind of collectively trying to have more nuanced conversations around things like this, energy and emotions and our relationship with ourselves. And I just am looking forward to more vocabulary words.
Yeah, we have access to so much information. And honestly, like, did you see I went through this entire podcast without once saying the word chakra? I said it now, but it needs to be pulled in. I think it needs to be pulled in more and maybe redefined a little for people, but yes.
And I think, but I also think it's like, look, when things become more clear for us, we have multiple ways of describing it.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Multiple. Then you get into like having like 5 words to describe something, but each carries its own connotation, right? And then that's when it's all like, that's when you have like a real grasp on something.
And being able to communicate, it gets so much better. Like getting to dial in how to express yourself with words. Yeah, definitely.
I just love it. I love conversations like that. Well, maybe we'll talk about how to help people. The thing that we want to talk about next is is not influencing others to make decisions, but instead having conversations where you help them make decisions for themselves. And I think that we could talk about that next. We'll leave it there.
Let's do it. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you.
Till next time.
Yes. One day we'll know how to end the podcast without talking like mice.